Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. Today I'm going to share with you tips on how to keep your succulent plants alive. Now this will it will double for outdoor kept succulents and indoor kept succulents. And then after we talk about how to keep them alive, we are going to plant up a succulent container. So let's go ahead and get started. If you have a hard time keeping your succulents alive as houseplants or as outdoor plants, I have a little inkling as to why that may be. Just common things that many people, including myself, have done wrong to offend the succulents and causing their untimely death. So, one of the things that I like to remind people, or that one of the things I ask when people ask me, why did my succulent die? I'll ask them first, is it in a pot with drainage holes? What kind of a pot is it in? Is it in a clay pot? Is it in a glazed pot, ceramic pot? What do you have it in? I ask them, how often do you water it? And then I ask, how much light do you give it? um, Once you evaluate those things and you compare how you care for it and how it should be cared for, a lot of times people can put together what they're actually doing wrong with their succulent. So in my non-professional opinion, succulents should be planted in terracotta. You can plant them in plastic containers, you can plant them in glazed containers, but you have to be very, very careful when watering those succulents in the uh, plastic or glazed containers, because it is so easy for them to get root rot, because those containers don't breathe like terracotta pots breathe. Um, Succulents do not like to have their roots sitting in moist soil. And I think that's probably the number one key for succulent care, is you want a well draining or sharp draining soil. So what is well draining soil? What is sharp draining soil? Sharp or well draining soil is soil that when you water it, that water does not linger in the pot. That water drains out the pot, meanwhile moistening on the way out, but not holding up in the pot. So you don't want the water that you water your plant with to stay in that soil and stay around that root ball and keep those roots moist, because that is how you get root rot. So how do you get a well draining soil mix? Well, you can either mix it yourself, or you can buy pre-made bags of cactus succulent soil from your local greenhouses, or the big box stores will have a I think it's labeled like a cactus succulent mix. So either you can do that, but I will show you how I make my own. And I actually take regular soil and turn it into a well draining soil mix. My soil of choice to use for all house plants and outdoor plants in containers is the Pro Mix soil in the red and black bag. I, however, have not been finding it this summer, so I am just using what I can find and what I've got. So one of the things that I like to mix in a basic soil, so just your basic houseplant soil or potting soil mix, I like to add perlite to that mix. So perlite, you can find this in any brand. This is just what I could find locally. And this is such a good additive. Even if you're not growing succulents, I still add a little bit of perlite to my soil mixes. This is an orchid potting mix, and I also like to add this to my cactus or succulent soil mixes. Matter of fact, I add it to all of my soil mixes. But when you're mixing up soils, you want to tailor your ingredients or how much of the ingredient to the specific plant you're growing. So for succulents, I will add a lot more of the orchid mix. I'll add a lot more of the perlite because I want that water to flow through the pots very quickly. I don't want my plants sitting in water. So what's awesome about this orchid mix that I love is that it does contain perlite, but it also contains charcoal and bark, which are really great for plants. So now that we've got this and we've got this, and then I have my soil mix in a bucket down here. This is what I keep my soil in the house. So this stays in my basement, and whenever I need to repot something, I just go down there and do that. So I'm going to show you guys how I mix up the soil. Okay, so this is my soil container, and I have had this specific soil since seed starting season. So there is some seed starting mix in here along with the perlite mix, and you can kind of see the different soils mixing together in here. It already has a bit of perlite in it that just came with the pro mix. A lot of soil mixes will already come mixed up with, you know, a bit of pro mix, some with, you know, charcoal or perlite or vermiculite. But what we want is a higher ratio of perlite and bark and charcoal in this mix. I can't find my shovel, so, or my trowel, so I'm actually using my daughter's shovel from her beach kit. You know, gotta make do. So you see, this is a pretty even ratio with the perlite, but we're gonna make this even better. So we're gonna take the orchid bark. Look at that, nice and chunky. You can see the charcoal, the bark. The bark pieces are a little bit bigger than I prefer, but they will still work. There's another brand of orchid mix that does have smaller bark pieces, but because this is an outdoor planter, I'll allow it. And see how big the perlite is in this mix. Now for the perlite. Here are our succulents that we're going to plant, all except this one here. That one's not going to be planted. But here's the rest. First, I'm going to add soil halfway. And hope that I have enough soil for this, because it's looking like I might not. We'll see. This is blue spruce stone crop sedum. Gorgeous. Not going to zhuzh up his roots. I don't think he needs it. He'll be just fine without. Next up, hens and chicks tip top. So this one right here, stone crop sedum, go right at the back of this other. here. And we'll put this dude right there. Around the edges. And I want this sun sparkler actually to go in the center. So we'll put this here. This is Pacific Blue Ice Hens and Chicks Super Vivum. Fits perfectly right there. There we go. Now we're just filling in the gaps of the soil between the plants. Oop, making a big mess. So by hand probably works better. So this container is finished and it's absolutely gorgeous. Let's go back through some quick care tips for succulents. So first and foremost, I would put them in a terracotta pot. That's just me. That's how I like to grow my succulents. But if you don't have a terracotta pot or you don't like terracotta, if you use something that's glazed or plastic, just make sure that you increase the amount of drainage material in that soil to help it dry out as quick as possible in that material. Terracotta is a material that breathes, so it gets airflow through the pot, which allows that soil to dry out pretty quickly. As far as watering, I would water my succulents as soon, not as soon as they dry, but I would allow the soil to dry out, then give it at least 1 to 2 weeks between the soil drying and then the next water. If you see that your succulent leaves are starting to wrinkle or pucker, or they feel soft when they normally are firm, then go ahead and give them a water. They are probably dry. Succulents succulents prefer full sun, so 8 hours or more a day. They like to be in sun. If you're growing succulents indoors, if you don't have a window that's getting 8 hours of full sun a day, overhead grow light right over top. A lot of people will put their succulents in the window and notice that their succulents start to stretch. That's because they don't have good overhead light. If your light is coming in this way, then the succulents are going to grow that way and they're going to stretch that way. So if you want your succulents to stay nice, short, and stocky, overhead grow light for the win. Okay, fertilizing. I did not add any fertilizer to this soil. I fertilize succulents don't need to be fertilized very often. You could fertilize them in the spring. Uh, I would fertilize early spring and maybe like a late summer fertilizing. So I would, and then for something like this, I'll go I'll go back in with a liquid feed. So I don't want this to constantly have access to fertilizer. This plant doesn't need it. So that's easy on me, because then I'll just go in with with a water soluble fertilizer twice a year, and I don't have to think about it. So we covered pot, we covered sun, we covered fertilizer, well draining soil, and I think that is pretty much it for succulent care. Let me know if you guys have any questions about this arrangement, about caring for your succulents indoors or out, and I'll see you guys in the next video.